Hey guys, welcome back to Kiksta. So today I'm going to be doing a movie review, and today's film is John Wick Chapter 4. I was lucky enough to see the film a few days ago in cinemas, and to give you my first upfront impressions before I go a bit deeper into it, I really enjoyed the film. I had a great time with it. It's a lot of fun. There are problems with this film, no doubt, but overall I came out of it having a good time and I couldn't ask for more. But let's get into it. So the basic premise of the film is that it picks up pretty much right where the third film left off, where John has been betrayed basically by the High Table and he's out for revenge on the High Table. Kind of similar concept to the start of the first movie where it's just basically a revenge story. Similar kind of theme this time around where it's just really about him getting revenge. And so he at the very beginning of the film, he kills an elder, takes him out, and then moves on to the next thing. But the film kind of jumps from place to place where John has to kind of go to this place, kill that person, or get this thing, and then meet this other person, and then go on this mission to then, it kind of plays out like a video game at times where it's just like quest after quest after quest after quest to eventually get to the big boss at the end. Now, this film has some insane action set pieces throughout, which we come to expect from John Wick films, but this one definitely ups the ante so much at times that I feel like it gets kind of close and maybe gets a bit over the line into the realm of like self-parody at times. But for the most part, the action is just insane and a good time to behold. And let's start with the pros of the film, what I think were really great. Obviously, as I said, the action was insane and lots of fun. There's some really actually kind of deep themes in this film, not just with John's character and his own revenge arc, but probably the character that steals the show is played by a character named Kane, a blind assassin played by Donnie Yen. And he, from the moment he walks in, he just steals the scene of this. He steals this film in terms of his presence, the way he fights, the way he acts, everything about him is just so cool, and you're rooting for him, especially because he has an emotional attachment, an emotional driving force in that his daughter is basically being threatened, and unless he is brought back into the game to try and kill John Wick. So, and he's friends with John, so that's another kind of emotional conundrum for Kane. So he's kind of got the most three-dimensional kind of character traits in this whole film, and he's a lot of fun. He's the best. But that said, so he's a great character. John is John, same thing as you always get. The villain was kind of leaves a bit to be wanting, but not a bad villain, not a great one, just kind of like a standard, stereotypical villain that you would get from these kind of movies. But I think he's enough to kind of keep the film going at times. I think the one thing that kind of bogs down these films is also the same thing that makes everyone come to see these films, which is the extended and bombastic kind of action fight scenes that we get. The reason I say that is because the more absurd these scenes become, at this point John is immortal. Like there's no one that can kill him, right? But the more it goes along, you realize, okay, some of these things drag on too long, and no one can touch him. Why am I worried at all for his character? In the first movie, when there was, you could actually see him getting pain, having pain inflicted on him. He's not immortal. He's just a really badass assassin, but he is very much prone to pain and feeling pain. But now he's getting hit by cars all over the place. He's getting shot non-stop, albeit he's wearing a bulletproof tuxedos, which I have problems with too. But there's just it lacks a lot of stakes in this film throughout the action set pieces. But I feel they do a decent job at times of making up for that by just providing pure entertainment in these action scenes. And so if I go into those action scenes, there's probably two that stand out to me in the film as being my favorites. The first one is the first action scene of the film, which is a really long extended scene that takes place in the Osaka Continental. It all of the whole army basically comes to find John, and John is being protected by the owner of that hotel, and so there's a few people on his side there helping him, and just the action just keeps going and going. It's just insane kind of set pieces of with the fighting, and it's also the introduction of Kane's character and his introduction, the way they show how he fights as a blind man with these like sound sensors is really cool, and it's so that whole scene just goes for a really long time, but it's a lot of fun, and you know, welcomes you back into the John Wick world. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in for a long prolonged fight scene right now. So that was my first favorite fight scene. Second favorite was one that took place towards the end of the film in a building. The main reason, two reasons why it was one of my second favorite. One, the way it's filmed is that they kind of pan to like a top bird's eye view of the setting, and it follows John around as he's shooting his enemies, and it kind of plays back into that kind of video game sort of theme where it looks like a video game where he's just taking out guys, and you've got this 3D bird's eye view of the action. But the way he's shooting them is just insane, where he's got a gun where, I'm not an expert on guns, but I heard it's something called Dragon's Breath, where it's essentially blasts fire at his enemies. So he's just shooting each enemy with fire, and they're just burning up each one that comes at him. So it's just really like a crazy scene, but it's a lot of fun. So that was my second favorite fight scene about. Now, the end of this film, so spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, John basically dies, and the way he dies is through an old school duel that he enters into so that he can buy his freedom, which is explained earlier in the film. And the duel is against Kane, and they're basically the old school of pacing backwards and then shooting when they say draw until the other's dead. When I first saw that scene in the film, it felt anticlimactic, but then the more I thought of it after the cinema, it actually felt really appropriate, because the whole film has these just almost exhausting action scenes one after another, that now you actually finally slowed things down, and you got to actually feel this new tension that we'd never experienced before, which is basically a standoff and like first man to draw shoots. And we've been shown throughout this film just how dangerous Kane is and how good an assassin he is. So you're genuinely worried for John in this moment. And so that plays as a really good scene to end that story. And what makes it even better is that John uses that moment, as dire as it is for him, where he's being shot literally in different places in his body and is bleeding out. He still has the capacity to use this moment to shoot the big bad guy, so who Kane is fighting on behalf of. He uses it to shoot him, and it's like a nice little twist in that moment to, one, take down the big bad guy, and two, even relieve Kane of his of basically his own being blackmailed into fighting John. So it's like for the first time, John feels like a hero, not just an assassin who's fighting for himself, but he actually did something for someone else, and he felt heroic in that moment, and that was really cool. But obviously it's sad the next moment you see him die on the steps of the Sacre-Cœur, which is where the final battle takes place. But look, I think it's very much left open for a sequel. The cons of this film, they kind of make up the rules as they go along. You know, it gets a bit annoying at times when they're all using the bulletproof tuxedos. Everyone's basically holding up their jackets while shooting at each other while receiving gunfire. So it really cheapens the stakes of every fight scene when everyone is basically bulletproof now and immortal. Like, I feel like if they really wanted to do that, they could have done it in a better way, where he just wore something underneath his suit that was just completely bulletproof. But then it begs these other questions of, like, why doesn't he wear a balaclava that has the same technology in it? Like, why is he leaving his head exposed? And how after all this gunfire that John's received, has he never once received a shot to the head? I mean, it's just like, that's the thing. If you try and get into the logic of this film, you could tear it apart. That's in so many ways. But I think the directors, since basically the second movie, have like kind of decided we don't need, people are willing to just enjoy the action of these movies and don't need to make too much sense of the plot. And I'm guilty of being one of those people too. I don't walk into a John Wick movie expecting amazing storytelling or to like be consumed by the lore of the universe. No, it never intrigued me enough. The table, the Continental, I felt these were all just kind of plot devices from the start, so I never took them too seriously, and I just really wanted to see John kick ass, and that's what he's done. So overall, I'd probably give this movie like a 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it, had a great time with it, and I would definitely recommend it. If you've liked the first 3 John Wick movies, you'll definitely love this one too. So yeah, that's my review, and I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Bye.